if you think back over your life, you'll have known a lot of people. I certainly have encountered probably thousands and thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands, I don't really know. And if you think about it, school, university, jobs, events that you've been to, you've come into contact with a lot of people. And I'm only really just starting to figure out that what I deserve, frankly, from my relationships. You know, it's a very funny thing when it suddenly hits you that, oh my God, I've not been valuing myself at all. I've not been really valuing my time, my energy particularly well. And last night, it seems to be the thing that I periodically do at the moment, at this stage of my life, of getting into bed, having had, particularly in the last couple of weeks, having had a lot of really productive, creative days, ticking everything off the list and feeling very satisfied with it. And the amazing thing is that when I stop, you know, which is obviously what getting into bed, it's the end of the day, you're stopping what you're doing. It's suddenly, I'll start thinking about, you know, experiences that I've had and of course relationships that I've been in. And last night I was lying there thinking about me and my ex and realizing that the relationship, I mean pretty much from beginning to end, was totally lacking in any kind of intimacy. And when this hit me for real, I felt very, very sad. I felt very emotional, and I started crying, and then very shortly after I fell asleep. And when I wake up after these experiences, I always feel far more certain of decisions that I've made. But you have to go through all of these things to realize what your value and your worth are actually all about. Because as many times as I've said, there were an enormous amount of red flags with my ex, again, basically from the start. And, you know, wasn't allowed to go over to his, he didn't kiss, wouldn't hold hands, you know, and he didn't want anybody touching his face. In fact, he told me at one point that he'd worked with somebody who touched him on the face a few times, and he said, well, I don't like that. And, you know, fair enough, respect boundaries. But there was this one time that this lady that he was working with touched him on the face again, because she always said, oh, but you're so cute. And I talk about borders, and, you know, fair enough. But when she did this in some kind of instinctive response, I'm making excuses for him, I realise that, but he hit her so hard in the face that she broke her jaw. And when suddenly all of this hits you, because you can hear things, but not necessarily hear them or listen. You can't necessarily absorb them. Hearing and listening and understanding, they're all different things. They're different stages of the same process. You can hear a noise but not really understand what it is. But when you actually get in and you listen, you suddenly realize, oh, okay, this is a really fucked up relationship that I'm in. And the time and space and distance that I have from the relationship makes me realize, goodness gracious me, I put myself in a really unhealthy position. But I also actually, and I was talking fairly recently about how I had sex with other men for his delectation on his request. Remember that I tweeted this out earlier. Remember that suggestions or advice or requests are not orders. Know your own mind. Stand your own ground. Trust your instincts. I talked about that in a recent video, which was very, very healing, as one of my great followers on here did actually remark. It was very cathartic. But I put myself in a lot of very dangerous positions with this man. And I realise now that the main lesson that I needed to learn from this relationship, that makes a lot more sense to me now and that I'm living a lot more, is that it's essential to value yourself. It's essential to respect yourself. It always has to start with you. This is the point, the perennial point. It always has to be proactive, and you have to want to be treated well. And for some reason, I have excused people and rationalized their behavior and wanted to see the absolute best in them, even if they weren't actually willing to embody it themselves. And I sort of laugh at a lot of these things, because when you realize what you've done and where you've progressed to, you think, wow, was that me? And of course, the answer to that question is yes, it was. And as my therapist said to me, the thing is, Martin, you did all of these things for good reasons. They were damaging to me, really damaging, but you did these things for good reasons, and you were a good person back then and you're a good person now. But good people can do really, really destructive, dangerous things. And I've not talked about this for a while, but I did enjoy the adventure of it. I enjoyed the kind of rebelliousness of it, the naughtiness of it, because we did meet during the lockdowns. So the whole relationship, it felt a little bit, a bit edgy, a bit countercultural, it just... Always watch yourself. Do watch yourself. Know who you actually are as a person and embody it. And don't let anybody make you or cause you to lower your standards. It's not an easy path to tread, to say no. It's very difficult. And I think I see that in a lot of people. I think we all notice when people are not acting in their own best interests. And a lot of people tell me, be safe. But there are some times that I say wimps. And I sort of say it jokingly. But there are some times that wanting to be safe can actually make you do really dangerous things. Victims are violent people, says Byron Katie. If you want to kind of maintain the status quo, well, what do you have to do that? You have to deny the greater parts of you to fit in with the dysfunction of whatever situation you're in. And a lot of people do it in relationships because, frankly, and this is why I'm always a bit curious about my own behaviour, a lot of people are so terrified of being on their own, feeling lonely, that they would rather have a dysfunctional relationship than be on their own. And that happens a lot. But I have actually always appreciated my own company and enjoyed it. I've always wanted my own space and actually thrived in it a lot. But with this guy, it was a different situation. There was lust obviously involved. But when that started to wear off and there was no togetherness, there was no intimacy, I suddenly realized that I put myself in an emotional trap, psychological prison, and I wasn't treating myself well. And I think once you've realized that you're really damaging yourself of your own free will, well then the shit hits the fan, things get messy. But that's the opportunity, frankly, to release yourself. Trust your instincts, trust yourself, trust good principles, and treat yourself well.